Welcome to this short video to introduce the all-new eXtremeDB RT, the first deterministic embedded database written for real-time mission and safety-critical systems. Open source and commercial database management systems have been used in embedded systems for more than 20 years. However, there is a subset of the embedded system space that remained off limits to commercial vendors. Systems like certain medical systems, nuclear power systems, aircraft navigation systems, avionics, pilot assistance, and most recently, autonomous driving. Altogether, they can be called mission-critical or safety-critical systems that have hard real-time constraints. In these, a failure of a system is likely to cause material damage or endanger lives. eXtremeDB RT is the first commercial database system to fill the need for database management in mission and safety-critical systems. Conventional database systems are optimized to maximize database throughput, which is most commonly measured as transactions per second. In these database systems, speed is a measure of merit. For real-time systems, however, speed is less of a consideration than determinism or predictability. The primary objective of most conventional database systems is to maintain internal consistency. This is normally accomplished by adherence to the ACID principles. The main objective of a real-time database is to maintain consistency with the outside world while maintaining internal consistency. To accomplish this, database transactions must complete within certain time constraints. And to achieve this predictability, a deterministic database system must enforce transaction deadlines. We also need to clear up some confusion about the term real-time database. Don't confuse fast and high throughput with real-time. With real-time, there's a line in the sand, with consequences in the real world if it's crossed. That's why they're called safety-critical systems. In recent times, some database vendors and the media talk about real-time databases in a very different context. They're referring to a database system that ingests a stream of data, executes live queries on the data as it's streaming, and generates events in so-called real time. All this in contrast to having to poll a database periodically. Transaction deadlines don't figure into this trendy definition of a real-time database. In its initial version, eXtremeDB RT will be available for the VxWorks, Integrity, DOS, and free RTOS real-time operating systems, and also for Linux as an evaluation platform for ease of use. As this slide illustrates, a real-time operating system really is necessary. In the context of a real-time OS, running tasks don't interfere with each other's execution and timing deadlines. In contrast to a general-purpose operating system, a real-time operating system guarantees a CPU budget for its scheduled tasks. Therefore, the application and eXtremeDB RT can count on this budget to schedule and execute transactions predictably. Accordingly, Figure 1 to the right illustrates that with equal priorities, 12% of macOS transactions miss their deadlines, while under an RTOS, no deadlines were missed. And in Figure 2, when a writer thread has higher priority than a reader thread, under an RTOS, fewer write transactions miss their deadline, while slightly more lower priority read transactions miss their deadline. eXtremeDB RT transaction deadline management is built on this premise, that the time to undo changes during a transaction does not exceed the time to apply or commit those changes. From there, we put eXtremeDB source code under the microscope, so to speak, and inserted deadline verification checkpoints at critical points in the eXtremeDB runtime. At these points, either a timer is checked or a callback function is called depending on the particular RTOS being used, the services it offers, and the developer's choice if the RTOS supports both options. Either way, the checkpoints either allow the transaction to run or cause the transaction to be interrupted and aborted so that the transaction does not miss its deadline. In order to assure the key assertion, we needed a new transaction recovery mechanism that would be as efficient as possible. So we implemented a new copy-on-write recovery algorithm, informally called COW recovery. Whereas traditional eXtremeDB recovery is object-based, which is labeled physical on the slide, eXtremeDB RT recovery is page-based and labeled logical on the slide. A page is saved prior to any modifications and restored if necessary without regard to any logical database structure. In other words, regardless if the page contained objects or index nodes or any other content. In the recovery phase, the cow-based recovery outperforms the object-based recovery while being comparable for all other phases. We also needed a new transaction manager, or scheduler, that is cognizant of transaction priorities and deadlines. This transaction manager implements a high-priority, earliest deadline first scheduling algorithm. The traditional eXtremeDB transaction scheduling is first in, first out, and running transactions are never interrupted. EDF schedules transactions for execution based on their priority and deadline. A deeper dive into EDF transaction scheduling and preemption rules is beyond the scope of this short introduction, but is fully documented. To interface with the new real-time transaction manager, we created a new API, the McObject start function. The new real-time transaction parameters is a type-defined structure that currently only contains the transaction deadline, but in the future, we can add fields for additional scheduling algorithms, for example, one that considers the weight of transactions. Using eXtremeDB RT is easy. Determine your transaction priorities and deadlines, and implement either the timer or callback-based method of control point verification. Because of the wide variety of real-time operating systems, target CPUs, and tool chains, and the necessity of closely integrating each of the system's source code, eXtremeDB RT will be licensed only in source code form, not object code. This also gives developers complete control and flexibility and makes everyone's lives easier when support is required. Licensing is based on your project, the number of developers, and the target platform matrix. Please call us to discuss the parameters and to obtain an evaluation copy of eXtremeDB RT.